Hello everyone, it's Corvette Dan. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to do brakes, rotors, and pads on the new to the Corvette Dan channel 2003 50th anniversary coupe we just acquired. We're going to use our low profile jack and jacking pucks. I'm not really going to show you jacking up the car because if you can't get to that stage safely, you shouldn't be doing your brakes. So stay tuned. Alright folks, we have taken the wheel off. We've secured the car. We have jack stands. The car is properly secured and raised in the air. The first step we're going to do is we're going to take off where is it? There it is. There's two bolts holding the caliper on. Okay, we're going to remove those, and with that we're going to use a 3/8 drive ratchet and a 15mm socket. In a counterclockwise fashion. Alright, so this is what it looks like when you take the caliper off. Make sure you secure it. Usually we tie it, but I find that sitting it the way it is up there, out of experience, that will hold, unless something is jarred seriously. One thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if you could see it here, but there's these caliper mounting points here. These can spin when you try to take off your 15mm nuts. If that's the case, grab an 18mm open-ended wrench and hold it as you turn the nut counterclockwise. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to compress the caliper pistons back into the caliper so that the new pads can fit on there. What we're going to use is one of these guys. As you can see, I actually modified this with by welding the handle, because a lot of times what happens is these plastic ones, that plastic will spin in here. If you got a really difficult piston to push back, we'll work on regular cars too. So that's going to be our next step. Then after that, we're going to remove the caliper mounting bracket, and we'll show that in a few here. One trick I did is to employ two of these caliper tools and turning them in equally, because you can't get it in the center here to draw these pistons back at the same time. Now you don't want to go too far with these pistons, okay? It's best to not go far enough and then see that it doesn't fit and then go back and compress a little more. You don't want to pinch these boots. You also want to check the condition of these boots, because you may need a caliper kit if there's any damage to these, and be careful not to damage them. But I've taken an old pad, as you can see, to use to compress these pistons. Just want to share that trick with you. Alright folks, what we did next is we turned the wheels to get a better angle at these nuts. And I used a breaker bar 1/2 inch, and I used a, believe it or not, 13/16. It fit really good on these two nuts right here. This one and that one. And as you can see, hopefully you can see, 13/16. So take these two off, and this bracket will come off, right? This bracket, these two, I'll show that in a minute. Okay, after you remove that bracket, you can just take the rotor off. You may have to, what I did is I had to spray some deep creep around this, the flange if you will. I mean, it's a 20-year-old car, rotors are 20 years old and been on there since day one, I'm assuming. And you may have to incorporate a BFH. I used a rubber mallet. It doesn't look like that big of a hammer, but you want to start small. So actually a couple of taps with this and that deep creep, sitting for about a minute, and it came right off. So now we're going to start buttoning this thing back up, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Alright, this is what it looks like after you get the rotor on and the caliper bracket remounted. Again, I used a 13/16. I am referencing that because these two nuts, right? But I'm referencing 13/16 because I'm sure this is an actual metric. Because I want to say that because sometimes on my 99 I had to take an impact to get these off, okay? And I'd be much more leery to using a standard if I was using an impact. But if you know exactly what the size is of this, please leave a comment. But 13/16 did work, considering I did not need to use an impact. But also want to mention there's a torque spec on these. I do not know what that is. I've tightened them, as tight as I can get them. on the 99. They've always held. I've had rotors off and on that car a number of times. You can look up a torque spec. I'm sure there's one available readily online. But we're going to put the caliper back on the pads, and we'll button that up and show you how that is. Well, there we have the driver's side buttoned up, the caliper secured, the new pads on, and these 15 millimeters tightened. You may need an 18 millimeter open end to hold this in, like so. I wanted to show the pads on the bracket without the caliper, but the pad kept sliding off, probably because the rotor, because it's loose in here, because the pads have yet to be reseated. That'll happen once we reapply the brakes a few times. Also, I wanted to note, make sure you replace these clips. They ride in the caliper mounting surfaces, and it's always best to lubricate them, and most pads do come with lubricant. Alright, the things you're going to need to do this job are 15 millimeter combination wrench, potentially an 18 open end. You're going to need a caliper brake pad tool. There's my modified one. You potentially need a mallet. I have a 1/2 inch drive, 1/2 inch breaker bar. I used a 13/16 to get the caliper bracket loose. You may have to go for a little bit of power there. I have a 15 millimeter socket and 3/8 drive wrench. You're going to get 2 rotors, AC Delco, 118A 947A. You're going to get 2 of those. And in this case, I used AC Delco semi-metallic pads, AC Delco 17D 731 MHF1. I'm not a fan of ceramic pads. That's another story. Okay, I also have some WD-40. A torque wrench should be torquing your wheels to 100 foot-pounds. An impact potentially to get those caliper bracket bolts off. Some gloves. I used the deep creep to unseat the rotor from the hub. And the passenger side is going to be the same as the driver's side. So smash that thumbs up. Please click the notification bell. This is Corvette Dan. We just did brakes on a 2003 C5. The new to us 2003 C5. And there you have it. This is Corvette Dan. Until the next one, thank you.